So for this one, we're going to go ahead and we're going to learn how to graph cosecant of x. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to graph y equals, we're just going to change the cosecant to sine. So we're going to graph y equals 1/2 sine theta over 3 plus 5 pi over 6 minus 2. It's going to be the first thing that we graph. So when we do that, hopefully you already know how to graph sine. First thing we're going to start off with is we have to find the period. The period of this graph is the same as the period of this graph. The phase shift of this graph is the same as the phase shift of this graph. Okay, vertical translations will do all that. Obviously, we'll do the vertical translation last though. So when I look for my period, now my period will be 2 pi. We were just looking at tangents if you watched the previous video. And tangents start with a base period of 1 pi, whereas sine, cosecant start with a base period of 2 pi. So we'll take 2 pi, and we'll divide it by the number in front of theta, which is 1/3. So when I do that, I have 2 pi times 3, that's 6 pi. Okay, so in reference to this graph, notice that every pi is 2 boxes, so my total period is going to be 12 boxes. Okay. Now from here, I have to look at my phase shift. So my phase shift says let what's inside of the parentheses equal 0. So if we do that right here, PS, and we'll say theta over 3 plus 5 pi over 6 equals 0. So I'll move the 5 pi over 6 over. And then I'll have theta over 3 is equal to negative 5 pi over 6. Okay, we'll get the 3 off the bottom by multiplying both sides by 3. These will cancel out. This will end up becoming a 2. And we'll get the theta equals negative 5 pi over 2. Okay, so this tells me that my starting point, notice, see there, here's negative 5 pi over 2. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes left. So I'll start 5 boxes left. Okay, so what I'm going to graph first is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to graph this right here. Okay, actually I'm not going to graph the negative 2 yet. Okay, so I'm going to graph just this portion right here. So this tells me I'm going to start at 5 boxes left. And we notice that when we're graphing sine, we have 3 x-intercepts. My starting point is an x-intercept. Okay. I'm going to go 12 boxes over. That's going to be an x-intercept. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's an x-intercept. And what I'm doing here is I'm just taking this value and I'm adding 6 pi to it. So negative 5 pi over 2 plus 6 pi would give me 7 pi over 2. Now halfway between the starting point and the ending point of my one period is my midpoint. And my midpoint is also an x-intercept. And that's because if you go back and you look, get a little space over here. If you were just to graph y equals sine of x, what that looks like is it starts at 0, 0 according to the unit circle. It goes up here, it goes down here, it goes down here, and it goes up here. So you'll notice that its starting point and ending point are at x-intercepts. Its midpoint is at an x-intercept. So we're going to use that pattern when we're graphing these graphs right here. So we have our starting point, our ending point. We'll count 6 boxes over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now we look at this and we kind of compare it back to our sine graph. And this is a positive. So we'll take into account that that's a positive. So I would go over 1, 2, 3. And usually I'm up at 1. Okay. And then if I go over here, 1, 2, 3, usually I'm down at negative 1. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take into account this 1/2 that's in front. So if I take into account this 1/2 that's in front right here, what that's going to do is that's going to take all of my y values and cut them in half. So this has a y value of 1, so I cut that in half, and it becomes a y value of 1/2. This one doesn't change. This doesn't change. This changes to negative 1/2, brings it right there, and this one doesn't change. Okay, so now we graphed all that. Now, before we graph the -2, because what we're going to notice is that in cosecant, the x-intercepts of the sine graph are actually vertical asymptotes. So I'm going to go ahead and graph that right here. Before I move all these points down to, okay, these are all going to be my x-intercepts. Okay, so x-intercepts will be asymptotes. Okay. Now, I will move all the points down 2 because of this -2 right here. So I'll go down here, 1, 2, put a dot here. Okay, this was at 1/2, 1, 2, I'll put a dot here. Okay, this point right here, go down 2, I'll put a dot here. Down 2, 1, 2, and then 1, 2. Okay, so far what I've graphed, now I've graphed this entire thing right here. So make sure it has some nice curves. This is a pretty skinny graph though. Okay, just make sure your lines are not straight lines. So now what I do to actually transition from graphing the sine graph to the cosecant graph is I'll just graph up like this. Just make sure you're not hitting your vertical asymptotes. And I'll go down like this. Okay. And that's how you graph cosecant. If you can graph sine, you can graph cosecant.